Hello, I'm Daniel. I'm going to tell you a story today. This is the story of a man called Wonhyo. Wonhyo lived in Korea hundreds of years ago, and he was a really dedicated practitioner of Buddhism. And he got this idea that people get once in a while throughout Buddhist history to sort of try to go back to the land where it came from to try to find a better version of Buddhism, to try to find like the real Buddhism. And that has happened throughout Buddhist history. It's happened a bunch of times. But Buddhism had come to Korea from China, so he thought, well, I'll go to China and try to find the real Buddhism so I can become a real serious Dharma teacher, because the Buddhism here is not good enough. That was his line of thinking. So this fellow, Wonhyo, he decides he's going to travel to China. And back in those days, I mean, there's no cars. He doesn't even have a bicycle. He's walking. So he has to walk from Korea to China. It's a long and dangerous journey. And we don't think about that very much. But in, a few hundred years ago, traveling was really dangerous, right? So he's traveling to China on foot. And he's got a friend with him, but his friend isn't going to do anything in the story. But he does have a friend with him. He's not alone. And one night, they get caught in a terrible thunderstorm. And I think in the modern world, we take for granted that we can get through that, right? Weather can be really unpleasant sometimes, but we have a lot of ways to get through it. And Wonhyo didn't have a way to get through it, Wonhyo and his friends. So they go and they find a cave, and they hide in the cave for shelter from the storm. And so they're in this cave, and it's pitch black. It's pitch black. They can't see anything in the cave. And they decide to try to go to sleep. And they do. So they're sleeping, and in the middle of the night, Wonhyo wakes up, and he's just incredibly thirsty. I do that sometimes. I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm very thirsty. I think it happens to all of us sometimes. His mouth's really dry, and he's really thirsty, and he needs a drink. And he reaches around, and he finds something round, and he thinks, oh, it's a gourd. And for that, you need to know that in this time and place, it was a common practice to collect water in a gourd, and the gourd would keep it cold, and you would drink from the gourd, like a water bottle. So, which it sounds kind of weird now, but that was a common thing in those days. So he takes this and he drinks from it, and it is the coldest and most delicious water he's ever had, and he's very happy that he found this and that he drank from it, and then he goes back to sleep. Okay? And in the morning, Wonhyo and his friend, they wake up and they look around because there's light in the cave now, and they see it is a burial chamber. They have been sleeping in a crypt, so there are bones everywhere. There are even some partly decayed bodies around, and Wonhyo is alarmed, and he looks down at the gourd he had picked up, and it is a skull. It is a skull with some very dirty water in it. It's gross, and he throws up immediately. And then he decides he's not going to go on to China, and he goes home and becomes a very celebrated Buddhist teacher in Korea. So this story tells us how powerful our minds are. Wonhyo had an expectation that the water would be, he had a belief that it was a gourd, and he had an expectation that the water would be cold and refreshing. And because he had that expectation, his mind played a trick on him, and it told him it was true. It was true. So he expected to drink delicious, refreshing water, and then even though that's not what he drank, it's what he experienced, because our perception shapes our experience. Our perception shapes our experience. And what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that gives us some power over our experience. If we can change the way we look at the world, then we can change how we experience the world. And that's what Wonhyo learned how to do. He was able to change the way he experienced the world. So he went home and he became one of the most celebrated Buddhist teachers in Korea because he thought of new and profound ways to bring the teachings to people. And he was able to bring the teachings to lots and lots of people. And he was a monk previously. He decided not to be a monk because he thought as a monk he couldn't reach everybody, and he wanted to reach everyone. So he gave teachings in public, in the streets, and he gave teachings in temples like monks too, but he really tried to reach everyone after that because he had seen how powerful his perception was, and he wanted everyone to have a little more control of their minds. So that's why this story is important, because it reminds us that we have more control than we think we do. That's true. I think it's true. I think our perceptions and our baggage and our labels, they shape a lot of how we see the world. And we can learn how to be fully present, and we can learn how to control the way we interact with the world around us. That's all for today. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.